All right, so I'm here with Andrew Douglas. How you doing today, Andrew?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, man, all the way from Costa Rica. How are things going today?
It's beautiful and sunny as always. It's never a dull day in the morning. It's always beautiful.
I love that. I'm jealous, man. Well, thanks for coming on. And why don't you tell the listeners a bit about what you're doing? You're doing some great things in the tech space and in the mental health space, and I'm excited to talk about it. So why don't you give the listeners a little intro to what you're doing and what you're up to?
Yeah, so I think it's important I give a little bit of a background, right? Of where I come from. So originally from Washington State, and I was a firefighter paramedic there for years. Struggled with PTSD. To the point where it affected my health and my family. And so I decided to walk away. We sold everything and moved down here to Costa Rica. Um, and so like, I'm trying to find my like new way in life and like what's my next career going to be. And I had just come up with an idea because one of the things I really struggled with, right, is my ability to like express my feelings verbally and my emotions verbally. But I can sure as hell write really good about how I'm feeling. So I was having a hard day and I was like, man, I wish I just had this app that you could like type in how you feel and you burn it up and it goes away, right? And I was having that conversation with a buddy and he is in the tech space and that's what I want to get into is my next career and we just started brainstorming off of that initial idea and we've come up with Ciento, which is a mental wellness app for high stress professions. We're going to have two different versions. We're going to have a consumer and a corporate version. If you go to ciento.ai, you can check out and join our beta list, which would be awesome. And so yeah, we're just getting that going, and we just got a developer on our team, so it's pretty exciting.
That's very exciting and very cool. Um, Even just sharing a bit of your story there. So is it sort of like a you write and then there's a reaction to it with AI, or how
Yeah,
how is
yeah.
it?
So
What's the plan of how it works?
so we're utilizing AI. Obviously, that's the hot topic right now. I think there's a lot of really interesting uses with the NLP. So basically, what will happen is when you type in how you feel, it will then analyze like the topic that you talked about. It'll analyze the feelings and emotions that you have, and then it'll show you that you're not alone. Right? That's the biggest issue within mental health is you feel alone, right? In that
Yeah.
struggle when you're having moments of crisis, you feel like nobody cares, but the reality is you're not alone. There's, I mean, probably hundreds of thousands of people struggling with the same thing that you are. I know I felt alone for a long time, and we can get into that later, but yeah, it's important that people have a connection together and realize that you're not alone.
That's awesome. It is true, isn't it? It's crazy. Like, I know we chatted before. This podcast used to be a mental health podcast. So I interviewed like 85 people around their mental health story or so. And I felt it as well too. It's crazy how like us as humans, we feel so alone. We feel like we're the only one that's going through it. And we look around and we think like everyone else is fine. And I'm, in this state and like, it's just me here, you know?
Yeah, I think we like as a culture, right? In North America is like we're really good at putting on fronts, right? We can, you got the Instagram where everything looks perfect. When
Yeah.
in reality, I mean, pretty much, I don't quote me on the statistic, but it's roughly like, I mean, I won't even throw out a statistic, but every family has somebody who's struggling, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't pick and choose who's struggling from whether it's depression, anxiety, PTSD, multitude of other issues with mental health. So it's just it's important that we tell our stories and especially within like the fire service, right? And I can't speak for police, but it's very similar, and same with veterans, and EMS. But there's been for a long time this machismo, I guess you could say, culture within the fire department specifically, that you're kind of told to shut up and not say how you feel, right? At least that's how it was when I first started. It's changed a lot a bit now, but yeah, I mean, it's really important that we tell our story, and if you can affect one life through your story, I mean, that's potential recovery for somebody to live a fulfilling life.
Could you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think it's interesting. And we're talking about like your time in the beginning of the fire department. Like, what was the general kind of way of approaching it, or culture, or and how have you seen it change?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I started in 2005 as a volunteer firefighter, right? 18 years old, no life skills, just a high school student. And my first introduction, I had a pretty messed up motor vehicle accident, and I was pretty upset about it. And I had like mentioned like how messed up that was, and I was told by a senior firefighter at the time to suck it up. Um, so that has kind of been the theme, right, in the culture for years, is that we instead of coming back to the station and talking about like, man, that made me feel like this, or that made me feel sad, or whatever it is, we find dark humor to make it okay. And it's like it's pretty sick, but it's important because that's our way of protecting ourselves. But the problem
Yeah.
is by doing that, we then suppress our emotions and
Mhm.
our feelings, which is eventually, I explain to my kids, it's important that we have good, healthy outlets, whether it be exercise, whether it be, for me, fishing. I love fishing, because we all have our own cup, right? And I describe it as milk because they love milk, but I'm like, every day we pour more milk in our cup every day. We have to either drink it or empty that cup, because if we don't, it's going to spill over, right? And that's where I got in my life, where from years of suppressing my emotions and feelings, it kind of caught up with me, and I never talked about my problems. Whereas like I would say like the last 5-ish years, there's been a lot of really good progress within the fire service with being open about your feelings. We started implementing what's called a peer support team, which is awesome. That actually for me was huge, because I when I had a crisis moment, that was the first person I reached out to, right? Another fellow firefighter who I could trust, that's also been through some stuff, right? And they can help me through that moment of crisis to get me to care. And so it's pretty exciting. I think we're at like this kind of pinnacle of like change that could happen. And it's going to take leaders to step up and tell their story and make it okay to talk about our problems. Because the reality is life is not all roses, and it's not perfect. Everybody struggles some way and another, and just to be open with each other, and you can really create like such a better bond within the firehouse or friendships by having those like vulnerable moments together. I like, for me down here in Costa Rica, before, I never used to tell my friends anything, right? About my feelings or emotions. I suppressed everything and put on this facade like I'm perfect, and I'm this great firefighter paramedic, and it wasn't healthy for me. And so now down here, I've been very open and vulnerable with my friends, which has allowed me to like truly build great connections, which as humans we need, right? Like, connections, everything. So it's been it's exciting to see where the progress has come, but like, it's exciting to see my progress too, like getting outside of that culture of like change, and handling myself a different way has been very healthy for me.
Right. I'm curious, and this just came to my mind. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, but like, I couldn't imagine, you know, being a young kid, let alone at any age, like seeing those things kind of repeatedly. What just came to my mind was it would affect you, you know, mentally, like physiologically, like a reaction to seeing something, but like there would almost be a spiritual element to it as well. Like I imagine just thinking of being like 18 years old, like seeing a dead person, for example. Like
Mhm.
there's almost like, and I don't know if you have thoughts on this, but it's like if you have no kind of spiritual kind of life philosophy or like, because you're dealing with life and death.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. Does that make sense to you, or does that resonate at
No,
all?
no, it does. And that actually is a really good point, right? Because for me at that point, right, I was fairly religious, I guess you could say, within a church that was an interesting church, Marcel. Um, and what was really hard for me, right, is like specifically after that one wreck, I literally went to this guy, our pastor at the time, Mark, and was basically talking about my struggle with it. Like, why would God allow something like this to happen? Like, this is horrible, it's tragic. And he basically turned me off of the church after that because he asked me, he was very disrespectful and rude in me questioning God's will. And instead of having an opportunity to educate me as a leader, he shunned me basically. So I kind of, that really made me not like the church, right? Made me lose faith, right? And
That's
something
very
other than myself.
unfortunate. That's a very unfortunate way to
Yeah, it
handle it.
sucks.
I don't think that that
Yeah.
would be the way that most would handle it. Right? Like
No, and
uh
if you do some
proper.
research on who Mars Hill Church is, right? Like it was a very toxic environment.
Mm,
Um and so I lost that for a long time, right? And um I think having faith is super important, and whatever you believe in, it's just important that we believe in something other than ourselves, right? And so having that faith, and those feelings while you're seeing all this stuff can really help you heal, I feel.
yeah.
um in one way or another, like I have some friends that are into Buddhism and Hinduism, and some very spiritual aspects, and I see where they're coming from, and some of their ways of dealing with, especially like within Buddhism, right? You talk a lot about suffering, right?
Yeah.
And that's what life's all about, is suffering. And that's how I've been able to, like, I wouldn't say I've turned my life around. I still struggle all the time, right? And I'm not perfect. But understanding that, like, suffering's out there every day, and you're gonna suffer every day. And the idea is that how do you get through that to get to those next stepping stones, right? Of healing. And so yeah, I think there's um having more of a faith-based background with
Mm.
seeing that stuff, and having somebody I could trust to talk to would have been definitely helpful. But here I am at 35. I was 18 then, and I'm kind of figuring out my ways in life. So
I think we talked a bit before, but I lost my girlfriend to suicide when I was 20. The girl I was dating, and
mhm.
like the reason that came to my mind was like I wasn't religious at all before that. Just getting into it a bit now, but like when faced with death, I think that it brings that stuff up. It's like, uh, you know, it's just interesting when, and I don't mean to bring this to a morbid place because I'm talking about death a lot, but like when people die, like you automatically have these thoughts, and people are like around that person were like they're in a better place now, and they start saying stuff like that, right? And you got to come to terms with whatever you believe or however you want to interpret it, through all that. So that kind of came to my mind, like dealing with that at such a young age. Like you kind of have to have some kind of framework, or you'd be pretty lost.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like I was lost for years, right?
Mm.
um Basically 2018 was kind of like my kickoff of my issues, right? So I had a handful of years of just struggle, and it took me to face all that and feel that suffering, right? That pain of what I was struggling with, to push forward, and for, I'm so sorry to hear about your girlfriend when you're 20. Yeah, I mean, I've seen like in fact, one of my bad calls that haunted me, for a long time was a suicide, right? It was a hanging. Um, and like it was to the point like I couldn't go. It was the day before Halloween, and so when it happened in the morning when I was getting off work, and my family was going to the Halloween store that day, right? And I had like panic attack, in there. I'm like, I gotta get out of here. Like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And my heart's racing. I'm sweating, right? And I'm like, what the heck's going on? I didn't know what was going on, right? I just thought like I was sick or something was wrong. Like I didn't realize how much of a physical reaction you can get from seeing those things or dealing with those things. So I think it's, knowing your body, right, and being able to recognize those things is the hardest part. Um, yeah, no, it was pretty intense. It's not fun to see.
Right. So yeah, like it gets physiological, right? Like panic attacks, maybe like even throw up, like a visceral reaction to something that like triggers you, reminds you of something through your whole
Exactly, man.
body.
Yeah, it's a, you know, you when we're stressed out, we produce cortisol, right, which is not good for us. But you kind of get stuck in this like fight or flight state
Mm,
that is so hard to get out once you're in it.
mm.
Um, and so, at the time I had no tools or skills that I could utilize to like work through it. So I basically, that was like the beginning of a spiral of going downhill, for me. And um, yeah, I mean, it's, I wouldn't change anything for the world. Like everything I believe happens for a reason. Um, I think it's important just to have like, hope. That's what I always try to preach, right? Is that like you have hope that you're going to get better. And um, yeah, I mean, you just got to do your stuff and face the pain. So, you know,
So how did you sort of it sounds like you kind of went through a period of doing that, facing the pain, going through maybe therapy, and then that leads you to, you know, moving and starting this business. Could you talk a little bit about like that journey?
yeah. And it might be a little long winded, so bear with me. Um, so in 2018, like I said, I had like a really bad string of calls that were newsworthy. Um, and I hadn't realized, like I said, like when I went to the Halloween store, like this reaction I had in my body, it kept continuing more and more, and I didn't recognize what it was. I wasn't sleeping. I would, purposely keep myself awake at night for the fact that like I would have these terrible that like hanging, right? Like this guy would like talk to me in my dreams, and like it was horrible. And then you would go back into it over and over and over again, right? So I'm dealing with all this, I'm starting to get like very agitated, not like myself. I started doing like a lot of isolation. And that kind of built up to the point where, again, we talked about like feeling alone, right? And that was like the most lonely moments in my life up into about 2019, some August 2019, when I kind of had a falling out with some friends and said, obviously they can't see that I'm hurting, even though I never told them, right? Um, so fuck it, I'm gonna go end my life. So I went home and grabbed a pistol that I had, and I kept my ammo separate and loaded up. And by, whatever you believe in, right? Like somebody was looking out for me that day, and my wife came in there and grabbed the gun away from me and secured it. And that was kind of like my initial turning point of like, it's time to ask for help, right? And so I went through years of, being on meds and taking, you know, different psychologist, trying to work through that stuff, working with a psychiatrist. And I just wasn't getting 100%, right? Like I kept having these like continuous struggles, and things weren't necessarily going away, to the point where in like 2020, right, I'm getting suicidal again. I had a stent in my room for like 5 days, right, where I didn't see my family. I didn't interact with my family. I hardly was eating. I wasn't taking showers. I wasn't taking care of myself. Which is why I try to take a shower every day now, right? Because it's important that we do those little things to take care of ourselves so we don't get stuck in these holes. And so, yeah, I was really suicidal and had a bunch of plans, and I was like too afraid at that point. Like I was worried that how much it would like affect my kids and stuff. Like I having all these thoughts, and then I was like, well, it'd be good if maybe I just died at work. Maybe I'll just get hit by a car or get killed in a fire. Like then nobody will think differently of me. Um I had two friends at the time who were like, dude, you're getting out of the house and we're going fishing. Because fishing for me was a huge therapy, getting out in nature and connecting with nature. And even if I didn't catch anything, just being out, and being able to like appreciate everything around you, right? And so after that, I had like a out of body experience, I guess you could say, right? Of like flipping out, which I've never had before, which ended up with the police being called on me. Um, and my kids seeing that, I wasn't violent to anybody, or made threats or anything like that, but I lost it, right? And my kids had to see that, and like the impact, I harbor a lot of guilt from that, of my kids having to see that. And I also, that was like my defining moment of like, okay, you need to go somewhere. And so that's when I went to an inpatient treatment facility called Deer Hollow in Utah, which specializes in first responders. It was a phenomenal program. And their big thing is they talk about like, you got to feel the pain to get through the pain. We had this place called the Pain Box, right? And that's like where you went to, work through your stuff as a group and then individually and stuff. And that really is like this huge pivotal moment in my life of like, kind of finding out who I am and working through my problems and just being really vulnerable and like listening to what they actually had to say, unlike before where I'd kind of do my stuff. And so then, kind of from there, like my wife and I, reconnected, and like our relationship had improved a little bit because it was pretty rocky there just from, my actions. And my biggest mistake is I rushed back to work. I didn't take the time off because, and I haven't talked about this before with you, but like what I realize now, like retrospectively looking back, is that I let the job define who I was as a person, right?
Yeah.
So if I wasn't a firefighter, what the hell am I, right? So I rushed back to work, and it was not smart, and I just continued to go downhill again, and to the point where I'm like, it's the job, man. Like, it's I don't think you can cut it, and it took me like almost a year to figure this out, right? And so eventually I decided to walk away, and we love Central America, and so then we sold all of our stuff in the US and bought a farm down here in Costa Rica. And I'm really starting to find my way in life, and it's pretty exciting. And I hope it's inspirational for some of your viewers, right? That it's okay to struggle, it's okay to go through this stuff. What I had was faith going through it, that things are going to get better. And I worked my butt off, and I still fail daily, but I changed my view on failure, right? I view failure as something that is a stepping stone in life, right? Those are our biggest life lessons, and things that we can learn from is failure. So I'm okay failing now, right? I fail daily, as a father, as a husband, as a professional. Like it's just, it's life, right? And so that's how I've gotten to where I'm at today. So it's been a journey, man, but it's it's hurt, but it's been really awesome. And so I hope, you know, in doing this, my biggest hope is that, you know, I just want people to know that like this is okay, like this is normal.
Yeah.
What's not normal is auguring in and not taking care of yourself and affecting those around you without taking care of your problems, you know.
Right. Do you think the identity thing that you mentioned, do you think that's common in first responders?
100%. Um, it's So I can talk about my story. I don't know how everybody else gets their identity, right? Wrapped around the fire service. And for me, it was also as a union leader, right? I was our secretary treasurer for our union. And that was also my identity. For me personally, it had to do with like growing up as a kid. Looking back, is that my father was I lived the American dream on the outside, right? Big house, nice cars, got everything I wanted in life, which I wasn't grateful for at the time, and I've learned a lot that gratitude is everything, right? And so yeah, we didn't have like really a good relationship. He struggled with trauma from when he was a kid as well, right? And so that's really what's motivated me today, right? To make my changes is like I want to break that cycle. And so it was just really difficult you know, coming into like my teenage years of like, you know, I started acting out because I was looking for that like supportive father figure in my life that I didn't have. And so I started getting into trouble until a good family friend of ours was a fire captain up in Lake Stevens, Washington. Bruce, great guy. And I instantly fell in love with the fire department because it was like a family, and they like took
Right.
me in under their wing. Right? And so that's kind of where my identity came from, right? Is that like, oh, this is my family. And I did a
Right.
podcast not too long ago and he compared it to almost like a gang, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a kid who's trying to find his way in life, and he finds that support and in that family. While it might be a positive thing, I think it's kind of an existential crisis, not only within the fire service but in general, right? We the my Costa Rican dad down here is my adopted dad. He says their mentality on life is God, family, and job in that order.
Yeah.
Um, and I really, that really is important to me now. And I feel like we kind of have our priorities backwards in North America and Canada and the US, right? And
I
that
think it's like
we
in North
we
America, I
put
think
our
it's like
job.
job, family, God. Maybe God's not
Yeah,
even on the
or
list.
not even any of the, or it's just job, right?
Job,
And
job,
we
job. Time for the rest
so
if there's time.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, man, it's just that was a struggle, right? Like especially walking away, because like I didn't realize that was my identity, right?
Yeah.
Until I walked away. And you find that a lot in the fire service, right? Like a lot of um brothers and sisters that retire like go downhill afterwards. And that's because they've wrapped their whole entire life around this identity. And it's okay to like be passionate about your job and want to be the best at it. I think we all should strive to be the best at whatever we do. And on at that same point, that there's more to life than your job. Your family, you know, especially your kids, right? Like I'm trying not to pass down this generational trauma and my own traumas to my children. And so now I'm very open with them. Like the other day I was feeling pretty sad and I was talking to my daughter and I wasn't really playing with her like I liked. And I said, I'm sorry, honey. Daddy's really sad right now from his job. He's kind of thinking of things, and you know, I love you. And if I'm not playing with you, I'm sorry. And I just want you to know I love you. And that's why I'm acting the way I am. You know, being very open and vulnerable like that to our family is, and the people we care about, super important. And so, yeah, I mean, it's identity is identity is a bitch, man, because I think it defines everything. Then you're like, what am I going to do for a career? Like I have a associate's degree in paramedicine. Nobody's going to hire me. How am I going to make 150K again? Like, I was making good money,
Yeah.
and now I'm not, but eventually, hopefully I will. But again, money's not everything.
Yeah.
Another, I don't know, side tangent that just popped in my head. Like another thing I did that was unhealthy, and I see it a lot in America, especially, is that we we have these voids in our life, right? And we think that buying stuff, like for me, it was like getting toys and like all this stuff. Oh, if I get a boat, I'm going to be more happy now, right? And so
I can
I
get
went through
drunk
these
on the
years.
lake 10 times a summer.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna get hammered. But so like I made some poor choices, right? Like I
Yeah.
made poor financial choices, and it's affected my family, right?
Yeah.
I can't change the fact that that is, but it's really changed of what I value in life. And
Yeah.
I think stuff isn't important. What's important are the people around you and that sense of community. And that's what we really found here in Costa Rica is this awesome group of people that like, we're all, it's just, I don't know if it's just because we all left the country and that we came from and are in this like foreign environment and you build strong connections, but having that sense of community and connection is like, I think humans need that, and I think that's what we lack a lot in society is that true connection and um, that true sense of community. So
Yeah. Um, did you ever hear the book Lost Connections?
no, I'll have to look into that.
That's a good one. I think it's by his last name's Hart. It might Jonah Hart or something like that. Um, but basically he talks about like how we've separated from it talks about mental health and anxiety, like depression, anxiety specifically, and why it's so common in North America, and kind of like the Western world. And it's just talked about how like we're separated from our environment, we're separated from uh, our community, we're separated from our relationships. I think there might have been one more, but those are like the big three, right? And it's
Mhm.
like we wonder why we're unhappy when we're completely separated from each other and we're like out of our natural environment and we value things more than people, or at least that's how we spend our time and that's how we act in the world. And
Mhm.
it doesn't make you happy, you know? You can't buy a
No,
relationship and, you can have a Corvette, but if you have, if your relationship with your wife is shit, you're not going to sleep good. You're not going to have a life, So it's interesting
yeah,
the way
I
that we
think
live.
it's my buddy, he works for an investment bank, right, and manages large assets of very wealthy people. And we had a very vulnerable discussion kind of like my struggles and whatnot. And he's like, the money doesn't make you happy, right? Like he's like, I have billionaire families that are just total messes, right?
Yeah.
So it affects everybody. And money ultimately, I view, just gives you more time.
Mhm.
Um, to do things that you want to do, right? And hopefully that's productive and healthy. But yeah, I mean, it's not gonna, if you make more money tomorrow, it's not gonna make you any more happier. It's
Mhm.
just gonna give you more time to be able to do what you want, right? Like you can hire maybe a house cleaner. Now you're not cleaning the house, right? Like by making more money, and that's giving you more time. But by somebody cleaning your house, is that going to make you happier, or is buying that new car and having, $500 car payments? Thank God I don't have that anymore. Um, it's it was, and speaking of that, like getting away from debt, and not having a mortgage down here and being more affordable in ways is like the biggest reliever. Like
Yeah.
not having a mortgage is huge. Yeah, I mean, we got blessed and lucky that we were able to get out of that from buying building a house down here. It's like 3 or 4 times less than
Yeah.
the States right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, these are just some of my thoughts. Like, I think it's just there's a lot of things in North America, Western world that we've just kind of accepted. And when you kind of take a step back and look at it, whether it's like mortgages or like just the how common it is to be in debt with everything, like how much that affects everything, like everyone's mental health, right? Like being so disconnected, being in debt for the most part, chasing consumerism, and um, not being connected to each other for the most part.
Yeah, bro. It's like it's we call it like the rat race,
Mm.
right? Like because you get stuck in these cycles, right? Like you 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 don't you have to, like, once you get stuck in like owning like a super nice car and like then buying all your toys, your boats and trailer or whatever, right? Like now you're stuck in the cycle of debt that like requires you to work even more. Like I saw it at the firehouse a lot, right? Guys would be working, 100 plus hours a week, um and killing themselves, and I was guilty of it too, right? Like I used work personally as a crutch to like not have my family see me jacked up all the time because I could just hide in my room, right? um Whereas like, other people are just, you see the stress and struggle with them coming into work all the time. You're exposing yourself to more trauma because you want to own a trailer. Like, is
Yeah.
that really worth it? In the moment, it's hard to recognize that. Like now I can see that, like, it's not worth the stress and the extra trauma you're gonna have to deal with just to have a trailer. Like, I think you get kind of stuck in that race where like it's, I don't know exactly how you solve it, but like once you get in debt, it's so hard to like get out of that cycle, right? And it's just
Yeah.
not healthy for people.
Yeah. I think at the core of it's kind of like, I think it's values. And it sounds like there's different values where you're living now.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean it's a whole new lifestyle. I mean, it's really frustrating at times, right? Like having to go sit for like 3 hours is not very fun.
Yeah.
But you know what? I make the best of it, right? Like that's what I've really tried to change is like, it's before like I would get frustrated over like little things, right? And like just by being around the culture, I've learned to just kind of go with it, right? So then I use it as an opportunity to talk to somebody next to me in the bank and in Spanish and practice my Spanish and learn about their life. Yeah. And so I think it's like it's important that we like change our perspective on these kind of things, right? Like, yeah, somebody's supposed to work at my house today and they said they just don't show up. Like you could get angry about that and let it affect your life, or you could just be like, okay, manana, tomorrow. Like it's what it is. You can't change it. You hear people honking horns here, and it's as thank you. You know how many people let us in traffic? Like it's insane, bro. Like people are nice to each other, and like, and it's not. They have their struggles here too, right? It's not all rainbows and roses here, but it's as far as it comes to values, like they have their priorities straight, right? Like money is not everything. Money is not, I mean, you need money to survive, but for them, like spending a day with their family and not showing up to work is more important than showing up to work that day. And I kind of find I respect that in a way. Like it's annoying, it's frustrating on my end as the customer, but I mean, if you're spending time with your family, like that's a good thing, like you got your values aligned, kind of like that God family job mentality, right? Where we just don't have that in the States.
Right. Well, tell the audience where are you at in development with this platform, and how's it going?
So it's pretty exciting news. We brought on a developer who's got a passion for mental health and has his own story. He's an awesome guy, super smart. His name's Joey, and he is actually really big into music. And
Oh,
so
that's
him and
cool.
I were talking. Yeah, him and I were talking because I have this thing called like an emergency playlist.
Oh,
So
cool.
if I'm like super high from PTSD, like fight or flight, I have music that brings me down. And then if I'm super low and I need to come back up, I have music that like motivates me and is
AC/DC and stuff.
uh yeah, yeah, exactly. Um maybe a little Bon Jovi as well. Dead or Alive is a good one. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's a great term when you're down or one to watch or listen to when you're down, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, so like he's big into music and like we've got this great connection and he's passionate and driven behind our mission. And sorry, I don't have our mission memorized, but let me pull it out for you because I feel like it can connect with your viewers, whether they're in a high stress industry or not, right? It's important that we have this outlet of expressing our feelings and emotions. So that's why we want this initial app to be for anybody. We don't want it to be just for first responders. We do have plans in the future to expand into like the corporate world. But I won't go too much into that detail. But here, let me pull it up real quick.
Sure.
Okay, so our mission is to create a stigma-free mobile application platform that acts as a safe space for all people. We want to make sure that like anonymity is like very important, and that through our market research we found that is a big pain point that people want because they don't feel comfortable talking to their employer or asking for help, right? And so we view
Right.
this as like that first step, right? Where you can talk about how you feel and then see that connection with community. And the rest of it is to anonymously share their feelings, connect with other people, and seek mental health assistance, right? So through connection, we build support networks, which ultimately will hopefully allow somebody to feel comfortable to now ask for help, right? Like I said, in the future we're going to expand a lot. We have like a lot of other features that we have ideas, but we really want to drive the product based off of not what we think the problem is, more based off of like feedback from our users. So the more users we can get when we're beta testing, which we're hoping to release in May timeframe, the better we feel a product that we can make directly for our users. And so it's pretty exciting. Like the design's all done. It's a very minimalistic app. We wanted to make it very intuitive and not super flashy and annoying, but we also wanted to build something that was discreet. And so
Right.
that you know, maybe your peers don't know what you're on, like, oh, you're on a mental health wellness or mental wellness app. Like, what the heck? Um, and so
Right.
that, but we also like we chose the name very strategically of our company. Um, Obviously I live in Costa Rica, so I like Spanish. And there's a word here called siento, which means to feel, right? And so we felt that was a good representation of our company, of what we're trying to accomplish is to break down the barriers of stigma, which will then help people get ultimately into care and get healthy and maybe get to a place where I feel where I'm at right now, where yeah, it's okay to still struggle, but I can function daily. I can um talk about my feelings and my emotions where I couldn't do that before. So I mean, it's a pretty exciting project. So I'd love if your viewers could go check out Siento.ai and just join our beta. That would help us immensely. And your feedback is invaluable for us, and we really want to make something that people actually can benefit from. So yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Right. Yeah, guys, definitely go check that out. Go sign up. Um, I think that's a really good some really good points there with like around the privacy stuff. I think
Mhm.
that's really good. And I think like even from kind of you mentioned like the employer thing, like they don't want to ask for help from their employer. I think that's interesting and really good. Like, you know, let's say that a company had like just they got access for their employees to this app, and then you don't there's no like I have to tell somebody and I have to go seek out. It's like I have this app available to me and now I can use it when I need it. And it's kind of like this private thing because I definitely can see that like, even from my own perspective, like wanting privacy and wanting not to be like if I needed help, not to have to be kind of vocal or tell other people about it or people to know about it.
Yeah, you definitely want to keep that stuff private for whatever you feel comfortable sharing,
Mm.
is that level of vulnerability, right? And I think the biggest problem, like I think about, like, you have employee assistance programs, which are a great resource, right? The problem is you have to go to HR most of the time to get that contact information.
Yeah.
And what we found through our research is that most people don't even know it exists, right?
Yeah.
There is like almost like 30-ish% that like had zero idea that they had an EAP, and they did. It's like, um it's a good resource to have, but we feel like in the future we want to build a solution that like actually solves a problem. And we feel like access to mental health care in a rapid fashion, especially for our high stress professionals that typically won't, um firefighters don't ask for help until they're in crisis, right? So those are people that they don't need to sit on hold and wait to find out, you know, oh yeah, you can go see some counselor who's never seen any first responder. And we don't trust people outside of our network, right? So that's why you'll find a lot of, like, I went to psychologists that only dealt with first responders, and that was huge because now they can relate, right? They understand what we go through and what we see, because the general public does not see the suffering, especially in the inner city, right? Like, I worked in an urban environment, and I mean, every day is just suffering of people, and it just drains you, right? Like, I mean, how many times, like, I went to the grocery store and had to buy food for some kids in their house because their fridge was empty. Like, how the hell is this happening in America, right? And so all that stuff just really drains on you, over the years. And um so yeah, I mean, I just think there's a better solution to the problem than what is currently offered. And so we're excited in the future with that. And we're working with some psychologists now and building that out. And but for now, our main focus is getting this consumer based app out, and trying to um, get people talking so that they can talk about their feelings and then maybe feel comfortable for asking help once we have a product that will be able to make a difference in their life.
Well, that's awesome, man. I love what you're doing,
Yeah.
and I love what the conversation you're putting forward, and the solution you're putting forward and you're working on. I think it's really awesome, and I think the more people that do it, the better place we're going to be in, because you and I both know how big of a problem mental health is, and I think it's really awesome. Man. So I just want to say thank you for coming on, and thank you for sharing. And why don't you share that website one more time where people can find it? And you said maybe in May is when you're looking to have the official release.
Yeah, so we'll have our beta release. We're going to do a closed beta testing, right? Because we need people to help us train the AI and catch bugs and stuff like that, before we do like an official release,
Oh yeah, right,
throughout the app stores, right?
right.
So the more people we can get, the better. Right now we're up to 67 total. That's just all organically. So please share, with your friends and family if they're struggling. Go to the website www.ciento.ai, and you can see join the beta and sign up your information. And then we send out like kind of continuous emails right now of like updates. But yeah, I'm super excited for it, and I appreciate your time and having me on, and it was a great chat. And I just want your listeners to know that it's okay to struggle, and just to continue to have hope and faith that things are going to get better, because they can. You just got to feel through the shit, and you'll get through it. You won't be alone. So
Well,
thanks again, man.
thank you, buddy. That's an awesome message. We'll see you later.
All right, we'll see you later, Brett.